Hey everybody, Bandicoot Commando here, and welcome back to Marvel Rivals. Last time, I read Psylocke's lore story, Akanti Tales, where it picks up basically after Jeff's and Mantis's lore stories, where as the three of them escaped the Collector, though, a large battleship belonging to the Collector had followed them and was trying to recapture them. But they encountered a creature known as an Akanti, and Mantis was able to communicate with it to get it to help them, and that inside of its body, it was being plagued by the Brood, which is a parasitic alien insect race. At the same time, we learned a little bit about Psylocke, or Psy as we know her, where how she ended up in a different timeline where in her home world she was at she was doing business as usual with the Brood, although she believed that they were yokai, until all of a sudden a portal just opened up in front of her and she was captured by someone and brought to the Collector. But after helping remove the parasites from the Akanti, at first they were going to head to Wakanda, but as they were waiting, Mantis's ship picked up a distress signal from Quill and the other Guardians on Clintar, and Mantis would rather obviously go and save them other than get into Wakanda to save themselves and whatever. And as they were leaving, Psylocke psionically picked up on hearing someone say, "To me, my X-Men," and saw images of Krakoa. But who knows? We'll learn more about that some other time. So today, we're going to read Rocket Raccoon's lore story. You little rascal. Rocket Raccoon. Rocket may not look like a tech genius or an expert tactician, but anyone who's ever made his hit list has quickly regretted underestimating him. This savvy space soldier is equally eager to boost his teammates and to collect bounties on his foes. I got some of his skins. Based on his appearance from the third movie. Someday, I'm gonna make great machines that fly. And me and my friends are gonna go flying together into the forever and beautiful sky. Yeah, I'm just gonna take a moment to admit that his scenes when he was a kid with his friend still makes... I'm thinking about it right now and I'm starting to slowly tear. It still hurts me when they die. Anyway, the bounty hunter one. Hey, Groot. You think cranking up our bounty to the max, turning ourselves in for the reward, and then breaking out would make an easier payday than chasing fugitives all day? I don't think that's how it works, Rocket. Rocket. That's who he is. He may look cute and fuzzy at first glance, but the Space Ranger known as Rocket has a bite just as nasty as his attitude. Fortunately, he puts his uncanny technical aptitude to use for good as a member of the Guardians of the Galaxy. When Star-Lord signed on for a mission to explore Clintar, Rocket tagged along for easy target practice shooting symbiotes. But when their ship crashed, Rocket unexpectedly found himself in a fight for his life, trying to keep his fellow Guardians safe until help arrived. Ace Agent of the Universe. After Quill went and crashed the Milano, because he wasn't paying attention to what Rocket was telling him naturally, Rocket had noted that they were in the middle of what looked like a huge ship graveyard. Great, he thought. Let me go find parts, get the Milano patched up, and we'll be out of here in no time. So that's what he was doing. Only most of the ships were so old that they didn't have anything useful for the Milano. He marked a few that might be worth closer attention, but mostly Rocket was not finding what he needed in this massive junkyard. Figures, he said to nobody in particular. Looks like I'm going to have to engineer something tricky. There was movement along the hulks of the ship off to his left. Rocket watched, but he didn't see anything else. This Clintar place had a strange vibe. Big spaceship boneyard, big monumental spooky ruins, all of it surrounded by a jungle made of the weirdest plants Rocket had ever seen on any planet. No visible sentient life, but all the same he felt like he was being watched. Also, there was a huge fire burning at one end of the boneyard, not too far from where Quill had crashed the Milano. Rocket considered checking back with the group before he explored much more. But nah, he could handle whatever came up. He sure didn't need Quill, and Groot had said something about bonding with the local plants. Let him, weirdo. Uh-oh, more movement. They came out of the shadows so smoothly that for a moment Rocket thought they were shadows. Then their motion gave them shape, silhouetted against the background of the spreading fire. Strange, elongated black life forms. No two the same except for their long teeth and claws. They sprang from the wrecked ships toward Rocket, but he didn't waste any time. He racked his blaster and started shooting, running as he went. He had taken off in a more or less random direction, firing as he went to keep the monsters away. But ahead, he saw a complex of buildings, in a weird monumental style that made him want to do literally anything other than go inside. But more and more of the toothy black monsters were hot on his tail, and Rocket prided himself on having better than average common sense. So he headed for the buildings, hoping to barricade a door, maybe, anything to keep them out. Right before he got to the doorway, Rocket dropped a miniature gravity well behind him. He had been toying with black hole tech for a bit, and the temporary void annihilated the closest monsters, buying him enough time to get inside the building and jam the door with various bits of debris and a weird-looking statue he knocked over and shoved it in front of the doorway. Okay, he thought. The monsters started to bang and scratch at the door. They weren't getting in at the moment, but he wouldn't have all day to execute the plan if he hadn't yet come up with. So he had to do a little scouting, see what he had to work with, but not waste any time. As it turned out, quite a bit of scouting was required. Whoever had used these buildings, they had been very much into weapons and containment technology. This, Rocket reasoned, meant that it must have been some kind of jail, maybe. Or maybe they were trying to contain the living goo he had just escaped. Whatever its former use, he was going to turn it into a little fortress until such time as Groot and Quill decided to come looking for him. His ears remained perked and alert, as he expected some of the monsters were in the building with him. This helped him dodge the blast from a wall turret as Rocket was trying to strip some quantum circuits out of a panel way down at the end of a long dark hall. He was so focused on what he was doing that he didn't even hear the self-defense mechanism arm itself, only jumping backwards a moment before it fried him. He looked back to his score, a fresh new hole in the quantum circuit cluster he was attempting to pry out. "I was looting that," Rocket shouted at the inanimate object. Only the turret wasn't there anymore, smashed to bits by one of the creatures he was expecting. The creature snarled back and Rocket blew it away. In the darkness, he heard others moving and breathing. Spooky, he said. Remind me not to book the reunion here. He was talking just to hear his own voice and keep himself calm while he figured out what to do. Truth was, only one course of action made sense. He couldn't go back outside, so if he had to stay inside, that meant getting rid of all the monsters, or activating the rest of the tech. Rocket looked up and down the long corridor, noting how many side passages and intersections he could see. Nah, too open, he thought. Back to the building's entrance. He thought back to the building's entrance. Just off the big front door, there was a smaller side room. It only had one door, and if he had oriented himself right, one of its walls was an exterior wall. So if the monsters got in, he could always blast his way out through the wall. If he can retrofit the defense system before it took him out. Not the best plan in the world, but it would do for now. He zigzagged along the passages back to the front of the complex, slowed down a bit by all the gear he was dragging. A monster flashed out of a side passage, but Rocket had smelled it in a split second before. Another one dropped from the ceiling, but Rocket's whiskers sensed the disturbance in the air. Again, he was ready. His blaster lit up the darkened halls every time one of the monsters got near. The closest of them got to him was a weird crab-looking version that ripped some of the hairs out of his tail before Rocket reduced it to a puddle of goo. Then he stopped in his tracks. Right there in a doorway, there was an energy barrier projector, like the kind you might set up in a Xandarian prison. Rocket knew a little bit about those. "Aw, yeah," he said, ducking into the room and keeping his ears perked up while he fiddled with the barrier's projector's control panel. He was close to the entrance, close enough to hear the other monsters snarling outside the front door. This little room would be a perfect citadel if he can get the other bits of the self-defense system online. One of the monsters loomed out of the darkness. Rocket dropped his tools and blazed away at it until it was gone. Then he got back to work, knowing his time was running out. Kree, Shi'ar, Skrull, Xandarian. So much tech had been retrofitted into this planet. Rocket was surprised it wasn't his own invention. It looked like there wasn't a power source, but he had hotwired a few quantum circuits in his time. So he put the finishing touches into the console, paused to splatter another few monsters, and then hit the power button. Aha! The energy barrier thrummed to life, with a few turrets in front of it, and because Rocket was exceedingly clever, and also a little lucky, he was on the inside, and the monsters were on the wrong end of a Kree turret. Just as an experiment, Rocket tried to shoot one of them through the barrier. Blam! It worked. "Aw, yeah," he said again, louder this time, and then he was lighting them up through the barrier like there was no tomorrow. Which, if he didn't figure out a way to get back to the Milano and get off of this terrible monster rock, there wouldn't be. Hey, he thought, I bet I could use some of this stuff to reconstruct the containment fields in the Milano's engines. The idea lit up the inside of Rocket's brain. He saw it all come together. It would totally work. All he had to do was to get a plasma array, set of couplings that would link into the Milano's magnetic field resonators, then wire the whole shebang into the acceleration chamber that was damaged when Quill crashed the Milano. Because, Quill repeated in his mind, Quill was not listening to Rocket at the time. More of the toothy black monsters that survived the turret onslaught threw themselves against the barrier. Rocket blazed away at them, and they fell back again. Man, he thought, this is a mighty elegant solution to a real tricky problem. Guess a few other unfortunate souls work together to try and survive. But I guess whatever works. Only problem was now Rocket had to get out of the protected room and the complex with all the components. And that was going to require some finesse, because there were more of the monsters coming, and those doors weren't going to hold forever. Rocket racked a fresh charge into his gun, held it to the door, and waited. Well, now we got Rocket's perspective of this whole Clintar business, because we do know in Groot's story, Groot comes barreling in and is able to save him with the help of the plant life. So now we need to know what Peter Quill is up to and what his side of the story is. I'm going to be a little, well, maybe not a little, but I'll be slightly disappointed if he does not get into any danger whatsoever. So, yeah, that'll do for this episode of Marvel Rivals. Join me next time as we read Scarlet Witch's lore story. That is it, and I will see you guys next time.